guys, welcome back to Real Talk, the RGV's #1 podcast. My name is Homero Amador. Thank you guys for listening, watching, viewing, and subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications. We're about to hit 1,000 subscribers, bro.
There we go.
I'm super excited about that.
Right there.
So I just want to introduce my guest. It's a special guest, Sergio Castillo. A long list of accolades to go over. I'm not going to personally go over them. I'm going to let him do that. So, just Sergio, introduce yourself, where you went to high school, college, and then a little bit of your professional career.
Sounds good. First of all, thank you all for having me here. Sergio Castillo Jr., graduate from La Jolla High, 2009, and then was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to go to West Texas A&M in Canyon, Texas, which I had never heard of. They told me it's close to Amarillo, and all I knew about Amarillo was George Strait, Amarillo by morning. So went there from 2009 till 2013, redshirted my first year, then got to start for the next 4 years at West Texas A&M. And then after that, in 2014, had a couple NFL tryouts, and then finally got into training camp and got one preseason game with the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay. And
then ever since then, I've been in the Canadian Football League from 2015 till now, and had a little XFL experience until this whole coronavirus hit us. So with the Houston Roughnecks.
Okay.
But I've been all over Canada, and just a journeyman. Just here to share my story.
That's cool, man. I'm really excited because, the first time I heard about you, you were the guy at La Jolla, the place kicker. You had a whole section for rooting for you, throwing confetti, everything. I thought that was really cool. Tell me a little bit about that culture, just growing up and what it meant to play for the Coyotes.
I thought it was very unique, because every time I recall all my buddies because at the time we had three schools. Mm-hmm. So I went to Jimmy Carter, which was 9th and 10th grade. And all my buddies from Jimmy Carter, they had a section, and I can't remember what section it was, but every time I made a field goal, an extra point, they'd be, ole, 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 ole. So just to have that type of experience and to play at Coyote Stadium, it was, for me, it's like I said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime deal. And when I got to, put on the uniform and, growing up, I didn't really like football, to be honest,
Wow.
But I remember my tios, they would always take me to the games.
Mm-hmm.
And shoot, all the way to Penitas, it would be traffic, just to get into the stadium. So that first year that I got to play, it was pretty special because I knew what I was walking into, knowing how much it meant to the town and, and just to the kids growing up. For me, even though I didn't like football, but I knew it was something big. So something I'll cherish for a long time.
So you saying that you didn't like football, you also played soccer. Correct. And you were in band as well.
Yeah.
How'd you handle all of that?
Man, it's, I guess just do it. Mm-hmm. Right. My freshman year, I didn't play football at all. I was just in football. I was in band, soccer, and baseball.
Okay.
So I think, just my band directors, Mr. Adame, and then the head coach at the time, Coach Villaseñor for the football team, they work with me, So, but the way Villaseñor, worked it out, he's like, hey, these are the days you can come to practice. It didn't have to be all 4 days. You just come at least 2. Mm-hmm. But try to get practice on your own. So I remember my mom would drop me off every morning at 6 a.m. At the football field, and I'd get my kicking in, go through school. So then after school, I can focus on band. Okay. So it was just time management.
Yeah. Did it come natural at first?
It was just soccer style. Just kicking the ball. At the time, I didn't really think about technique or anything.
Okay.
Because I didn't have coaching at the time, so it was just soccer style. Just bend it, however how I can go in.
Uh-huh. Nice, man. That's nice. So fast forward, I believe that's your junior year. Y'all went to third round.
Yes.
So tell me about that year and how awesome that was.
It was unique, man. Just because if I'm correct, we barely entered the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
As a last seed, so things were were not expected out of us. And I remember we went against Laredo Alexander.
Okay.
And they were undefeated, and we're like, crap, it's going to be a tough game. They're might blow us out of the water. We go to their house. We beat them. And then I remember having the second game at home against PSGA.
I remember that game. That was like a super cold game.
Oh, gosh, it was freezing. And I told my mom, like, man, and freezing for us is probably like 50 degrees, right?
Yeah, it rained, too.
Yeah, so it rained. And I remember telling my mom, like, oh, I'm going to be fine. I'm not going to, I don't get tackled or anything. Yeah. Well, I think I had a blocked punt. They blocked one of my punts, and I had to go make the tackle, and then I ended up getting all win. I'm like, there goes that, right? We won that game. And then the third round, we ended up meeting Judson in Laredo. And I remember that first quarter, we were going against the wind, super, super heavy. The second quarter comes around, and there's less than a minute left. And I remember Coach Aron Garcia, our special teams coach, he's like, hey, get ready for a long one just in case. And I'm like, nah, we're not going to kick a long one, right? So I ended up doing a few warm-up kicks just in case in the kicking net. And I remember we ran the ball, and there was 4 seconds left. And Coach Casas, our head coach at the time for La Jolla, he's like, hey, field goal. I was like, all right, whatever, I did not know how far it was at the time. So next thing you know is Adrian Bautista, who was my holder. And he's like, hey, let's get this one, man. I was like, all right, we kick it. And he's like, oh, my God, you hit it from half field. And I was like, we looked down, and that's when I realized we're on top of the Texas logo.
Wow.
And next thing you know, I point to the stands where my mom was, and I was just so pumped, so excited. I started running into the locker room, and I forgot to march in the halftime. And that's when I realized it was a 58-yard field goal. And I remember my Tio Lupe, who was coaching at Cesar Chavez Middle School at the time, he was scouting, I guess, the next team. If we would have won, he was scouting that team. And he sent me a message like, did you just hit a 58? And I was like, I guess so. So it was just surreal at the time, because we still had a whole half of game to play. But after that, that's when I realized, like, okay, maybe there's a future in football for me. And that's how it all started. I think that's where it actually started, the belief for me to, like, okay, I can pursue this after high school.
Okay. And when did you start considering? Was there any times like after that the colleges started coming to your door?
No. I mean, no.
It took a little while.
No, it took a while. And I remember my senior year, I didn't get to kick many field goals. I kicked probably like 3 or 4. Nothing as big as my junior year. Junior, I had some pretty good stats.
Okay.
But fortunately, I got to meet my first kicking coach, who was Coach Paul Osbury out of Edinburgh, and he's like, hey, just send me your film, and I'll try to get it out to people that I know. And he started calling all these schools, and all these schools were saying, oh, well, we'll think about it, right? And signing day was coming up. Signing day was February 4th on a Tuesday. And I remember on a Monday, he finally called West Texas, right? Wow. And West Texas said, oh, we'll think about it. And he's like, I'm going to try something different. And he says, you know what? Sergio has like about 5 other offers on the line right now. So, signing day's tomorrow, so you might want to make up your decision pretty quick. Hangs up the phone. West Texas A&M calls like 20 minutes later. He's like, hey, we're going to offer you a scholarship.
That's crazy.
So next day, end up signing to West Texas A&M, and that's how that journey started with the Buffaloes.
That's crazy. So tell me about, your mindset. How do you start preparing yourself? Do you start researching where the school's at?
Yeah, I did. I started researching. I'm like, where's West Texas A&M? And I just knew it was about 12 hours away from home.
Did that, cast any doubt in your mind at one point? Because, like I said, family-oriented place. You grew up here. It's hard to leave sometimes.
Initially, no. Because I was just so excited. I wanted to play. Even during soccer season, because soccer season was during that time when I signed, there was about a week that I said, I'm done playing soccer. I just want to focus on football.
That's intense.
And then I ended up coming back to play soccer that season. But it wasn't until I got to West Texas A&M that the first couple weeks, I noticed how, like, there was a little bit of, discrimination. There's not many Mexicanos up there on the team, just in general. I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit, and I called my mom, and I called Coach. My mom called Coach Paul Osbury, and he said, "Well, if you quit, don't ever come talk to me again." because he's the one that got me the scholarship. He's like, I stuck my head out for you, and you better just write it out. And I'm glad I did, because, and here's the thing, that first year was a bit tough mentally, because I was used to playing, 4 years in every sport. I was used to marching since my freshman year. I used to playing varsity soccer since my freshman year, and then football, first year I started playing varsity was that very first year, my sophomore year. So mentally, redshirting was, it did tax me a bit, because I was just used to playing, being the guy, like you said, at La Jolla. Fortunately, I was able to meet a good group of guys, and, who had the same mentality as me, like that wanted to grow, not just on the aspect of football, but, help each other in school, right? Help each other outside. And just, I think, creating that bond of accountability can take you to places.
So do you remember, like, when that switch finally flipped?
That switch, I would say, I think after, training camp got done, and then we started the season, and obviously I was redshirting, I wasn't playing, and the first 2 games were away. So it wasn't until the 3rd week of the season that they said, okay, we're gonna have a home game, and there's gonna be a couple freshmen that are redshirting that are gonna dress out, so we can experience the deal, right? And I got picked to be one of them. The whole season I got to dress out. Never kicked or anything, but I got to warm up and do everything with the team. So that definitely motivated me, and especially during that time, West Texas A&M was pretty big in football. You would average 15, 16,000 people a game. So playing at Kimbrough Stadium, it was definitely something special. So that, I would say, that's when the switch came, once I started dressing out that redshirt year.
That's cool. So tell me a little bit about, you started dominating basically after, your first couple years. I saw your senior year, you missed maybe like 4 field goals or something out of 177.
Yeah, it like I said, it goes back to our mindset. My first 2 years of playing college, I had a lot of doubt in myself. I was a starter, and I had a lot of doubt, and I made most of my kicks. I believe the first 2 years I was 9 for 13 each year. And then my junior year, I just have a big year, and I go 21 for 24, first team All-American, and I still have doubt. Wow. And I remember it was off season. My snapper, Aaron Wampler, he already had graduated, but he was filming me. He was filming my kick so I can just see the technique and practice it. And we started talking about the mines, like, man, like, I'm still struggling. He's like, how are you still struggling even after a dominant year? I'm like, it's just all these doubts that I still have, et cetera, right? And he's like, well, you should go see Dr. Bartlett, and she's a sports psychology. Okay. She does sports psychology at West Texas. I'm like, all right, whatever. And I remember it was a Wednesday afternoon. First time I went to go see her. And after, hour and a half talk we had, the one thing that I remember was that I had a lot of doubt because the absence of my father, that he wasn't there. I remember always playing as a kid growing up in, here in Palm View, playing baseball or playing soccer. It's like, oh, maybe if I play good, my dad will show up, right? And my dad said, well, I'll be there. And, he wouldn't. Yeah. Right? And the relationship that we have, it was just through the phone. It wasn't really much. And I would see him once, twice a year. So until this day, I will say it still affects me. Not as much as it did, but I realized a lot of my doubt and insecurities was due to that. Okay. The absence of my father. And so then Dr. Bartlett told me, he said, I want you to create a list of 5 to 10 things that make you feel good about yourself. It can be anything. I was like, all right. And off the top of the head that I remember is I said, my coaches trust me, right? My Coach Carthel trusts me, who was my head coach at WT. God trusts me, right? Trust your training. Trust your training, right? And then I put a couple Bible verses, Galatians 6:9. And so I just started writing those down. And she said, Sergio, whenever you feel an ounce of doubt, pull that list out. Wow. I was like, okay. I got out of that meeting at 3:30. I went to bed like around 11. I pulled that list out 63 times. Wow. That's how many times I thought negative throughout the day. She said, Sergio, your mind's like a CD player. And if you don't stop it, it's going to keep on playing. People say, well, think positive. Well, right. But how do you do it, right? That was one way to do it, right? So I started creating that list, and before you know it, I started to memorize that list. I didn't even have to pull a list out by the week because I was okay. I already knew how to attack the negative thoughts, right? 60 to 72% of your thoughts are negative. So when you walk, do you think left step, left step, or you just walk? You just walk, right? That's how our minds are programmed, right? And if we don't find a way to attack those negative thoughts, it's just going to keep on walking all over you. And even till this day, you'll see me in the games. I'll have a little list here and inside my pant, of my football pants, and before I'm about to kick, or if there's a time throughout the game that I feel any type of negativity in my mind, I pull that list out, and the list is now it's go 1 for 1, right? Be a David, right? David versus Goliath. There always has to be a David, right? So that's the way I think of myself. Be strong, be bold, be courageous, right? The third one is Adriana and I, right? I'm playing for my future family, right? And it's just like when people prepare for their season, you don't just show up to training camp or first game and I'm ready to go. No, you have 7 to 8 months to prepare, right? I can't just show up and expect to be great. So that's the way I'm preparing myself as a man on the field, as a man off the field. What am I doing to prepare myself to be a good future husband, a good future father, a good player on the field? So that list, I think, has carried me till this day to keep on motivating me and pushing me when I've had doubts. Because you're gonna have days when you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? But you gotta have that list or a vision board. You cut pictures of your dreams and you just put them on there, and it'll remind you of who you're gonna be on bad days.
That's crazy, man. And you opening up about that, it's something that, the persona you put off is you would think you're just smiling all the time, happy, no worries in the world. For a college student to be going through that mentally, I think that's pretty tough to accept it within yourself, because a lot of the times at that age we think we know it all.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to seek, that guidance and advice. I think that's pretty cool. Something I probably would have never expected. Do you think those hard times pushed you to be like, better than your expectations?
Oh, definitely. Especially because there's always going to be people in your corner. And I talked about earlier about having accountability, right? I had that accountability in college where, I had my boys to push me. But after that, you don't. You don't have your boys. Everyone has their own life, right? And for me, I'm very fortunate. I've always had my mom in my corner, and I've had Adriana the past 4 or 5 years in my corner. And I think it's important that you have those people, because there's a lot of times when, my mom or Adriana would tell me, hey, do this, do that. And I don't want to hear it, but I have to. You know what I'm saying? And I do it for them. And because during the hard times, who is there? Yeah. Your closest friends, that circle. So those are the people that you do it for. And it just reminds you that, tough times are going to come, right? But they're only there they're there to break you. Yeah. But they're also, it's there, that season of whatever you're going through is there to mold you to be into that chingon version of yourself, that badass version that you want to be of yourself for the future. Yeah,
for sure. And I went going over your accolades. The one thing that stood out to me was just one word, and it was just sacrifice. How big was, making sacrifices to get to this point?
I think the biggest thing also is putting your ego aside, right? Coach Popovich of the Spurs, he's like, why has the team been so good, right? Throughout the years that they were dominant, it was because everyone put their ego aside. And there's a lot of times that, I saw some of my buddies that were like already in the NFL or in a CFL or playing, right? And I'm like, or even people outside in just they graduated and they got a job, right? And I'm like, man, like, I want to get a job, right? But I knew after college, I gave myself 4 years. If I don't make a pro team within 4 years, I'm done. So I told myself within those 4 years, I have to be okay making nothing. Okay. I have to be okay sacrificing the good life that I want.
Birthdays, right? Everything.
Exactly, because, being 12 hours away, it's not easy. I've missed a lot of my family's get together and stuff like that. But it all, family's always going to be there. The valley's always going to be there. But the window of opportunity to chase those dreams it gets smaller and smaller every day. And I think that having that mindset where it's like it's okay to fail right now, but use these failures, like I said earlier, to mold you. And that's the only way that we grow when we go through tough times.
So, that's crazy to hear. Wrapping up your college years, and we can go back to any time. You finished. You got what was the award you got your senior year?
The Fred Mitchell Award.
Fred Mitchell Award. Yeah, that's the best place kicker out of all of college football, right?
Yeah.
Division I, Division II, everything. That's pretty awesome. So congrats for that, man.
Appreciate that.
Bringing that to La Jolla, Texas over
Yeah.
here one time. Do you ever give any advice to the kids going back to the schools and just anything like that?
Yeah, I do, and especially I feel like there's like a barrier
Okay.
at Farfurias.
Uh-huh.
Like for some reason it's like, why can't we get past that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's another world out there.
Yeah.
And because we're not, what's the word that I'm trying to look for? We got to be comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? And it's okay to leave mom and dad, and it's okay to experience different cultures, right? And I think that's one thing that's very tough for us because 99.9% of the people here is pura raza,
Yeah.
right? So I know the first time I went to West Texas, I was in shock, hanging out with, African Americans or white people, and now I have some of them are my best friends.
Yeah.
But I think it's okay to leave home. Like I said, home's always going to be there. But at the end of the day, it's just like, I feel like a lot of kids, they want to stay here. It's like, you got to realize the window that you have right now. Whatever you want to be, it gets smaller and smaller. Because you don't want to be that kid, or not that kid, that person 5-10 years down the road that has a friend that succeeded and is like, man, I wish I could have taken that step that you did. Right? And that's what I try to feed off to the kids. Is just like, man, just 5-10 years ago, I was sitting in your seat with the same dreams, same hopes.
And what do you say to the kids that don't want to go to these schools that they never heard of, Because you could have easily been like, I've never heard of it. I'm all right.
Just be okay, experiencing new things, right? Because you just never know where it might take you, right? And one thing that I do say to a lot of kids, like even like where I live in Amarillo now, right? My girlfriend, she coaches high school soccer at Palo Duro High School. And I'm like, leave Amarillo, leave the Panhandle. It's like, tell kids, here, leave the Valley. And one thing I always tell them is like, life is all about relationships. And you're going to meet different people from all around the world, right? And there's been times where like, we'll go to Colorado, we'll go to Oklahoma, we'll go to Dallas, et cetera, right? But because she knew some friends from there that she went to college with, or because I knew some friends, we can stay there and we can hang out with them. Yeah. Right? And it's just, you get to meet so many people around the world, and I think it's just, that's what life is all about, making memories and meeting new people.
That's great, man. That's good to hear. So I'm going to take it back to 2014, unsigned Atlanta Falcons. What was that process like?
I remember it was San Antonio Spurs, 2014. It was the second time I'm going to say we because I'm a Spurs fan.
Yes, sir.
We were playing the Miami Heat.
Oof.
Game 3
crazy
was
here. That's a Heat fan back there.
Game 3 was in Miami.
Uh-huh.
So I was living in San Antonio at the time. And my friends and I, we went to the AT&T Center because the AT&T Center said, hey, we're going to open the arena to all the fans. We can watch the game on the TV.
Okay.
But we're going to make it like a real life game experience. They had the cheerleaders and everything. So go to the game. We win, right? We're up 2-1. Get home real late. And I remember waking up at like 7 o'clock and I have like 10 missed calls from my agent.
Ooh.
He's like, hey, you have a flight to Atlanta at 9 something, whatever it was.
And this was 7 o'clock.
It was 7 o'clock in the morning. He was like, you need to get to the airport now. I was like, shoot. I remember I get to the airport. So normally when you go to a tryout, you do the workout first. So for me, it would have been my kicks. And then if they like you, they sign you.
Okay.
Right? This was a total opposite. I remember I signed, and then they took me to the workout. So it was just like, it was different, right? And I was with the special teams coordinator, Coach Armstrong, who's now with the Bucks. And he's like, all right, Sergio, we're going to go to the kicking field. So in Atlanta, they have 3 grass fields and a turf field. The turf was indoor. And the third field was a kicking field / injury reserve therapy field. And I say that because Julio Jones was doing his therapy there. He was recovering from a foot injury, and it'll come later. So they told Coach Armstrong's like, can you punt? I'm like, yeah, I can punt. I mean, I'll clean the restrooms, whatever I got to do to stay here, right? He's like, and puro pelo, I had not punted in a while.
Yeah.
And my main thing, my bread and butter was just field goals.
Yeah.
He's like, can you punt and kick off? I'm like, yeah, I didn't kick off in college, right? So I didn't really have much experience going into it. So he's like, all right, sir, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do 16 punts. We're going to go for this direction, and we're going to switch the field, blah, blah, blah. All right, 16 punts, right? We don't even get past 4 or 5 punts. They're so bad. Ooh. And he's just like, we're done. And I could have sworn, man, I'm going to be about to get cut right now. And I just go begging to Coach Armstrong. I'm like, Coach, just let me kick field goals. Let me kick field goals. He's like, no, let me kick field goals. Julio Jones, who was doing his therapy there, he's like, man, just let the kid kick.
Wow.
He says that to Coach Armstrong. He's like, all right, let's kick a couple field goals. We end up kicking like 14 or 15. We go all the way back to like 55, 56, whatever. And I go 100%. And I was just smashing. Fast forward to like when I get released from Atlanta 3-4 months later, he's like, Serge, the reason why you didn't get cut that first day was because of your field goals.
Wow.
And I was just like,
shout out Julio Jones.
For reals, man. So that's how I was with Atlanta. And I remember that was OTAs. There was only 10 days left of OTAs. Okay. And my punting was bad.
Hey, you even had a tackle too, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, man.
I've seen you get that tackle.
That was crazy. Oh, my helmet ended up all chuck on everything. But I remember I had 10 days of OTAs, and then we had a month off. And that month, I practiced my punting as much as I could, you know. So ended up going back to Atlanta, have an awesome training camp. Until this day, I would say that's I would say it's probably the best training camp I've had, where it's just like locked in. I was locked in. I was kicking wells, smashing the ball. Yeah. And it was crazy because before that, like I was just inconsistent in my practices before signing with Atlanta. So have that one game, preseason games against the Dolphins, go 2 for 2, have that tackle. Yeah. And the following day, we have one more practice, and then the day after that, we're going to go to Houston.
Oh, okay.
So all my family, friends, they were like, hey, we're going to go to Houston, watch a game. And then I remember getting released on August the 9th.
Wow.
So I was like, dang. So that was my short stint with the Atlanta Falcons.
So what did they kind of tell you when all that came to an end?
Basically what they told me is that a linebacker got hurt and that they needed to bring someone in.
It's just one of those moves.
Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, they did have Matt Bryant, who was there for many years.
Yeah. Did you learn anything from him? You got to talk to him a little bit?
He's the one advice that I took from him was that you got to give yourself a timeline of how many years you're going to pursue this. And I think that's what helped me out a lot, because if I would have just gone year by year, see how it goes, I don't think I would have been patient enough. As patient, because there was a lot of times I was impatient. Yeah. But I think that really did help me out.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what's it like being, just in that locker room with these professionals compared to college?
At first, you're starstruck, right? It's so surreal because, these guys don't see on TV. But then after a while, you're there every day, and training camp, you literally live together, right? So it becomes a norm, which is kind of cool, right? And I remember as my punt started getting better, pre-practice, I would punt to Devin Hester.
That's crazy. Because
that was his first year that he was with the Falcons, so it was just a normal day, working out with Devin, So that was pretty cool, So it just, like I said, just the things that you always take is the relationships, and the times you had with the guys, So, the times we had our day off, play ping pong or, video games and just hang out with them.
That's awesome. So what was that decision like, to move across the other border, the north one?
So in 2015, So that was 2014 with Atlanta. 2015, I get called to Atlanta again to mini camp.
Okay.
And I kill it. And I could have sworn I thought I was going to get signed.
Mm-hmm.
And Coach Armstrong was like, hey, we're going to sign you and everything, the special teams coach. And then I ended up talking to the head coach, Coach Quinn. He's like, hey, we're just going to go with one kicker in camp. I was like, crap. And then, so the way it works in Canada, there's this thing called the negotiation list.
Okay.
So each team can put a certain number of players on this list, right? And they say that the max is 10 people, right? And the Toronto Argonauts had me on that negotiation list, meaning that no other team can touch me. And I didn't know of that rule.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't till, Hamilton had me on the negotiation list. Hamilton had me on that list. Toronto Argonauts wanted to sign me.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, we can't sign you because of you're on this negotiation list with Hamilton. And I'm like, well, screw it, how can I get off that list? They're like, the only way you can get off that list is you ask them to sign you. They have 10 days to sign you, or they'll just release you.
Okay.
And finally, Hamilton signed me. And I went with the intention just to get off the list, but I ended up being there for a month. And the season was already like 4 or 5 games into the 2015 season. And Justin Medlock was a starting kicker there, and crazy because he was one of my idols growing up. And I thought, oh man, I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna learn from him, and ended up being like we butt heads. We didn't get along. Man.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so then I was there for a month. I get released, and I got released on a Monday. It was around 8:00, and I remember I was in the weight room, and the assistant GM's like, Serge, we got to talk. I'm like, man, I already know this.
Yeah.
Where this is going. So he cuts me. It's 8:00, and I remember they give me a ride to Scotiabank because I'm going to get all my money, and I'm going back to US. I never come back over here. And when I come back to the apartment that I was at, I'm getting all my clothes, and I have a call from Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're like, hey, you're going back to Texas.
Oof.
You're coming over here with us. And then that's where I ended up being 2015, the second half of the season. And they told me, hey, Serge, the plan for you is not to play till 2016.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, cool. So the way I took that is either I could complain about it, like, man, this is not fair, because the kicker ahead of me wasn't doing good at the time. Mm-hmm. And his name is Liram, who's now actually, he just signed with the Rams.
What?
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, man.
But he wasn't doing that season. It just wasn't going well for him, and I was just getting very frustrated because I'm like, I want to play. And every day I started writing down 1DC, which is what I have on my bracelet. And 1DC means for one day closer. And the way that I saw it is just that, God knows my timeline. Right? He knew when I was going to be born. He knew when I was going to La Jolla. Mm-hmm. He knew when I was going to go to WT. He knew I was going to come to Canada, etc. He knows when I'm playing. All I know is that I'm one day closer. So every day, that's why I started writing down. I started writing down my goals, my sayings, and that was one of the sayings I wrote every day. 1DC, I'm 1DC. I'm one day closer. And I'm like, okay, 2016. Let's get ready for it, right? Well, like 4 weeks later, I ended up getting the chance to play. I ended up kicking my first game ever in Canada, and it was a game winner.
Yeah, I seen that. I seen that go a little viral,
Yeah, so I think it's a mindset. Mm-hmm. I think I could have easily just been, screw this, screw that. Or I could have, like I said, I'm one day closer and just, because humans are, they move off of emotions, negative or positive, right? So I started creating those positive emotions of me, I'm going to be playing soon. I better be ready. So fortunate enough, I went that route, and whenever the opportunity was presented, I took advantage of it.
That's crazy. So how'd you adjust to that game? I know it's a little bit different from NFL rules and everything.
Yeah, definitely. On kickoffs, you can't just blast it out.
No.
Because there's an additional 10 yards on the field.
Okay.
It's 110 yards, and then there's 20-yard end zones. Oof. So you just can't kick a touchback. It's like over here in the U.S. So directional kicking is huge. And then me being an American, I had to punt.
Okay.
Like you have to, because they have a ratio where there's only 44 players on the team. I believe only 21 can be American. So for me being a specialist, I have to kick and punt. That year and the year after, I struggled in punting. So it was tough for me to get a job because of that aspect. And so the kicking was there. 2015, I finished with Winnipeg. 2016, Winnipeg brings Medlock, the one that was in Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be we're butt heads.
Yeah.
Ended up being the best thing. We bonded,
Oh.
and he really good friends, and he's one of my mentors now. And I think sitting behind him that season allowed me to learn to act like a pro.
Okay.
Because I had the physical abilities to kick, but just mentally, like how to conduct a practice too. Like, okay, this day we're gonna work on this. This day we're gonna work on that. And be able to, just command it yourself, and that helped me out a lot. So when 2017 came, with the Hamilton Tiger Cats, I was able to, just able to use what I learned with him, even though I didn't play, but I learned a lot. Yeah. It helped me for 2017.
Yeah, and so you said you guys butted heads. How'd you guys start bonding again? Do you think it's because y'all clashed? He kind of earned that respect, like, okay, this guy, he's holding on his own.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why we butted heads in the beginning, because he was scared that I was gonna. He said, he's like, you were good, you had the potential to take over me, but the thing is, I couldn't punt very well like him. Oh. So in 2016, when he arrived, he got a big contract, so we knew he was a man. Like, it was his job no matter what. So he just started inviting me, hey, let's lift, hey, let's run, or hey, let's go. I was like, all right, man. Like, I was all surprised. Yeah. And honestly, just a bond started like that, and like I said, I'm grateful for that. And then till this day, we keep in touch, and we're always trying to, he's always sending me kicking videos. I'm always sending him lifting videos, right? So, but yeah, that's the friendship that we have right there.
That's good, man. So that's crazy. That's good. People can set all those differences aside, especially, with time passing by, and, just that bond, because I'm pretty sure he's taken a lot from you. You've taught him a bunch of other things that he probably never knew.
Yeah. In the aspect where, like, there's all different type of kickers out there, right? But there's always two types of kickers. There's kickers who kick 100 balls a day, and there's kickers who kick maybe like 20, 25 balls, right? And both of them are good, right? He's the type of guy that kicks, 100 balls a day, and I'm the total opposite. I'll kick 20, 25, and I'm done. Oh. So, but we've got into, we're like, okay, I've gotten a little bit of him. We're like, okay, it's okay to kick a little bit more sometimes, and then for him, he got from me, it's like, okay, it's okay to back off today. You don't have to go full out. Yeah. So, but yeah, we definitely learned off each other that year.
So tell me, after those years, I saw you had a major injury. How was that mentally? Had you ever gone through anything like that?
No,
before?
An injury like that. No, I've gone through years, like I said, where it took me years to finally get a starting job. But that year, that I was recovering from my ACL, it was tough, and you can only fight the battle on your own, for so long, and yes, I have God and all that stuff, but you need your accountability partners, and I'm very fortunate to have Adriana, where she's very hard-headed, man, and stubborn. She's like, you're gonna get back, there's just no way that you're gonna quit. There was times I really did want to just hang in the towel, like, I'm done. Right. And, I would say, honestly, the people that were there, I mean, there's a lot of people, right? But the ones that were consistently there that year and a half that I was out, was my mom, Adriana, and Medlock. They're always in my corner. And, I remember I was just so scared with ACL, like any little step, I'm like, I was scared. And Adriana's been through 2 ACLs. Wow. So
tough.
She knew everything about it and everything. She's like, oh, don't.
Like, I'm crying.
For reals, man. And I hesitate. Like, any little thing, bro, like, I'll be freaking out. Like, oh, this and that. I'm like, relax, it's okay, blah, blah, blah. And it was funny. The very first time she went with me, the first 2 therapy sessions, she, with my therapist, Shelly J, they unwrapped. Okay. The band to see the stitches, because they did this new stitch. I don't remember what type of stitching technology they used, but it was new. Okay. And my therapist, she's like, oh, I want to see it. Right? And Adriana's recording, and I see the blood, bro. Like, man, it's my own, bro. Like, it was bad, bro. Like, and Adriana loves. She's like, she loves blood. She's like, no, what are you doing? It's normal. It's nothing. And but like I said, having those people along with you, like having that accountability is huge in anything that you want to do, because like I said, there's gonna be a lot of downtimes, but you need to find those people, and you'll find them along life where you'll connect and you'll bond, and you're like, you know what, let's do this life journey together, and I'm gonna support your dreams and you're gonna support my dreams, and that's how it should be, And I think, her being Adriana being on my side that whole time, and that was during her soccer season.
Wow.
Yeah. So, for her to manage all that, and then me, because I'm a big pansy, I commend her for that. But I think also what helped me out during that season too was I love soccer. Okay. Like I love soccer. Like every day I'm watching. I'm like, especially right now, I'm watching a lot of reruns.
I know you're a big sports fan.
Yeah.
I would catch you, watching the baseball playoff games, and you were up there in the stands too, going wild.
Yeah, man. Like any little sport, I love it. But if there's a soccer game going on, like I want to be there, right? Yeah. And during that time, it was her soccer season, so that helped me out a lot.
Okay.
Being able to go to the soccer games and just take my mind off, my current situation, right? That life is not just about my ACL. As much as I wanted to get back on the field, like there's still a world revolving around me, right? So, with her, I coach the goalies, boys and girls at PD High School. So, me being able to still help someone, that group that I had during that year, work with them, it helped me mentally. So I think when someone's going through something, an internal battle, find a way to get your mind off things, right? Something that you like doing. You have like a hobby or something.
Would you say meeting with the psychologist during those college years helped you out?
Oh, big time, man. Big time. Because I remember that she's like, Sergio, you have so many notebooks everywhere. So every year I have notebooks.
Said, I'm going through things.
Leave
me alone.
Every year that I'm on a team, I have a different notebook for that team. Okay. And I write down my goals every day. In special teams meetings, I hardly pay any attention to special teams meetings. I'm always writing down my goals. Yeah. Or I'm reading a book and I'm writing down my goals. During that time that I wasn't playing those 600 and whatever days, I remember writing, I am one day closer to signing a professional contract.
That's crazy.
So it's those little things, those little sayings, those quotes, or that can move somebody. And it's just like I said, we're moved by emotions. I started creating that imagery again where, like, I'm putting on my pads, I'm practicing with the team, I'm signing that contract. And, imagining my family up in the stands, or them flying in and me picking them at the airport. Like, I started imagining all that stuff, and for me, I not as much right now because we're over here vacation mode, but I like to work out early in the morning.
Yeah.
I used to anywhere between 5 and 6. Because there's
that's earlier.
Yeah, that's early. But if you think about it, there's no one to bother you.
Yeah.
There's no one's going to text you. The world is not pulling away your time.
Everybody's asleep.
So you can fully dedicate you can dedicate whatever you want for yourself, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. So waking up early during those times helped me out a lot.
Okay. So how do you get all that focus, that energy, your spirit? Would you say that comes from your family, just how they raised you?
Yeah, definitely. My grandma, she's always been a woman of faith. And, ever since a kid, faith has been a big thing. But I think going off into college, that's where I really got to pursue faith on my own. Because, over here you're growing up and, you have your mom, you have your grandma, your tias, rezale a Dios and all this stuff. But it wasn't until, I started going through stuff on my own, and I couldn't just go to their house or to my mom, hey, like, on the phone, but I don't really, it doesn't really, it's not like one-on-one. It's where I really started, like, digging into, just into reading more, about God. If I believe in this God, well, let me get to know him. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of times we go to church and everything, but it's just like we don't spend more time with him, and I think, like when people only go, I feel like when bad times happen,
Yeah.
I'll go through him all the time. You know, and that's where I go back to like where I write down my quotes in the morning. I write down my favorite verses, right? Or every morning, I'll be reading the Bible. There's a verse that hits me, and then whatever comes to my mind, I'll write it, and it's kind of like a little devotion, and I'll send those out. So I think now that I use that platform that I have for football. Okay, I've gotten to know different people throughout these 5 years of playing professional, and now I send those messages out to them because if this helps me, I want if it help, I want to see, I just want to be a little piece of help to them.
Yeah.
You know, so faith is the foundation to all the success and the journey that I've been on.
That's crazy. That's good to hear, man. That's good to hear. You know, just listening to you talk. You know, I'm sure there's a bunch of more stories that you can go on about. Talk to me a little bit about something that, you know, maybe somebody doesn't know about you. You know, what you like to do on your free time.
Oh, free time? Yeah. Oh, I got a new hobby, man.
Okay.
I like to play golf now.
Oh, good. Nice. Yeah.
It was funny because before I used to just talk bad about it.
Right? I feel like everybody did, and now we all love it.
For real. I remember every team I've been on, they always offer free golf. And I never went or anything. And this past season, I went with some buddies, and they give us like the cart, the clubs, everything for free. And I hit the ball, and I was just like, man, this is beautiful. So now I'm addicted to golf. I would say I like golf more than lifting. I used to like lifting, and I like golf a lot more. Now that I have to pay for golf, I'm like, man, it is expensive. You know, so I'm like, in a way, I can't wait for the football season to start in Canada so I can play free golf.
Yeah. Do you think you kind of started liking golf because I used to work at a golf course, and I met one of my best friends there. He taught me a lot. It's a big mental game.
It is.
Yeah, a big mental game.
Yeah. I remember my kicking coach, Coach Gary Zahner, who's been one of my biggest mentors and kicking coaches. He always said, kicking's like golf, son. I'm like, well, I don't know, man. And I had him throughout college a lot, you know. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, I've swung, but I don't know what you're talking about. And now I can see how it's just, you know, they're both coming hand in hand, the swing, the technique. And I think I'm not good yet, but I think that's why I've been able to catch on to the game of golf because it's very relatable to kicking.
So, you know, now that you have a little bit of time to reflect, if you could, you know, just go back, tell yourself a few words, you know, high school Sergio, about, you know, just all the trials and tribulations you've been through, you know, from getting yourself out of those dark times, you know, and then it doesn't necessarily have to be like a younger version of yourself, but somebody that, you know, is probably in that situation. You know, what's the best advice you can give them?
Have a vision board. So, like, you don't have to have a board, but it can just be your wall. And just cut pictures of your dreams and put them on the wall. So you can start seeing, okay, who you're going to become, right? And maybe let's say you have 10 dreams. Throughout time, one thing I also tell kids, spend time with yourself. A lot of times we give too much time to, if you can spend 45 minutes in a class that you don't like, why can't you spend time with yourself? Who's more important, right? And, you know, try to put the social media away, the phone, and just spend time with yourself 5 to 10 minutes a day and get to know yourself. Get to know your thoughts. What are you thinking, right? And a lot of time you think, like, you have these negative thoughts. Start questioning them, like, why am I thinking this? And you come realize those thoughts are false, right? And I think a lot of those times that we're trying to pursue something, we stop because of the thoughts we have in our head. And if you can learn to fight those thoughts with the vision board, start writing your goals down daily, every day. And some goals are going to take a long time to change. So you're going to be writing the same thing over and over, right? It took me a year and a half to write down, I'm one day closer to signing a professional kicking contract. I wrote it down for a year and a half straight. But it came true, right? Because there's a saying, you are what you eat, you are what you think. If you think you're going to do it, you're right. But if you think you're not going to do it, you're also right. So before you win the battle on the field, before you win the battle at home, before you win the battle at school, or any battle you're facing, you first have to win it up here.
Yes, sir.
So I think the things that I would tell kids right now, or a younger version of myself, is have a vision board, write your goals down.
Yeah. Do you think they don't, have crazy enough goals sometimes?
I think they have crazy enough goals, but I think sometimes they set smaller goals to achieve them because they're scared of setting a big goal and failing, right?
Okay.
And that's one thing that Les Brown says a lot. He's one of my favorite motivational speakers. He's like, a lot of people they aim for small goals because they know they're going to hit them. No, aim something that you know that without, like for me, like without God, I know I can't do it. Right? Like I know I'm going to need God. Right? And those are the dreams that should scare you a bit because you're going to pursue something and the outcome may not might be what you want. Yeah. For instance, there's only 41 jobs in the whole world for football. 32 in the NFL, 9 in Canada. 41 people in the world have that job. 41. And there's so many applicants out there. Every year there's so many seniors coming out kicking, ready to go. There's a lot of young dogs out there that want that job, right? And I know that alone I can't accomplish that. I need God. I need accountability. I need godness. So I think is they need to be okay to fail. Because even if you do something small, you're going to fail. Yeah. Right? It doesn't matter if you go big or small, you're going to fail. So you might as well fail doing something big. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. Do you think, those reaching for the small goals, it's because, at any point you could have just been like, I'm not going to be a kicker because it doesn't happen around here often, Do you think it's because of, just how we grow up not really being able to reach or see, Julio Jones all the time or somebody, just walking around, get that advice?
Yeah, you do have that intimidation, especially here because, now you have what? You have more. You have, back in the day, there was maybe a handful of kids that would sign every year. Yeah. In all sports, both genders. Now we can't even count, yeah, how many kids are signing every year. And I think it's just breaking that barrier. And it's just more, I think it's breaking that barrier mentally. Because sometimes you're going to, even your own people will tell you, hey, this dream is too big. Yeah. But you got to be okay with that because that dream wasn't given to them, it was given to you. And it's up to you to water that plant, to water that dream. And that's the beauty about life is you can water it as much as you want. You have the power. You have the decision to make every day. Am I going to feed off of this or feed off of that? Because depending what you feed on, that's what you're going to put focus onto, right? The positive plant or the negative plant. So that's the way I see that.
Yeah. So, before we wrap it up, that actually kind of I want to ask you this question because you just said, you want to surround yourself with good people. Was there ever a point where you were surrounded by toxic people that you maybe at one point didn't know that the best thing to do was to cut them off and, just you saw the situation start getting a lot better?
Definitely in my first 2 years of college where, the roommates that I had in college, they, that's when I lived in the dorms. Okay. They ended up dropping out, right? And they just didn't have high aspirations, right? So I was kind of like
that rubs off on you?
A little bit, because my roommate, I was with him all the time. And it was, for me, I was okay being okay, right? And eventually it's like you have to recognize circumstances or people that you cut off, and then you have to be willing to do it, right? I didn't have to cut off because then eventually those people dropped out. Okay. And I started hanging out more. I mean, I already had them as friends, a group of guys that I had, Hector Rodriguez, Dustin Vaughn, Sidney Parker, John McSheffrey, all these guys that I had, I hanged out with them since my freshman year, but not as much. Yeah. And it wasn't until my third year in college I started hanging out more with him, my buddy Juan as well, who ended up being my roommate for the last 3 years. It's just finding those people. So, but yeah, definitely, it's like you gotta recognize when you're in a bad situation, and you gotta be willing to cut those bad habits out. Because even I still have bad habits. Yeah. Like I do whine a lot. I whine a lot, but then at the end of the day, it's like, what's going to win more, the whining or the overcoming, right? And then sometimes that's where that accountability comes into.
Yeah.
You know, like with Adriana, you know, she's like, I'm whining a lot. She's like, hey, stop being little. You know, so and like I said, that's where that accountability comes in.
That's cool, man. So I almost forgot XFL.
Oh shoot!
How was that experience?
Oh man, it was fun
Because they talked about it for maybe a year or two before it actually started.
Yeah, it was fun because you didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I remember the first game we were like, man, if we get 5,000 fans, we'll be lucky.
Okay.
Shoot, we ended up getting like 19, 20,000. Wow. I didn't, looking back at it, I didn't get to enjoy it as much because I felt like just mentally I was burned out. Oh. Coming from CFL straight to XFL, I only had 3 weeks off. Oh. So in that sense, I didn't get to really enjoy it. But like I said, I take away the friendships that I made. Being able to play for June Jones, who was my head coach in the XFL. He was my head coach in Hamilton in 17. I would say June Jones and Coach Cartho, my college coach, were the two coaches that I love playing for, and I would love to play for again. Yeah. So being able to play for June Jones was definitely a blessing. And why I say that is because he's such a calm guy. Calm guy. I remember my first game with June was in 2017, and Adriana was there. It was Hamilton against Toronto. Okay. I was with Hamilton. We're playing at home, and I remember going in that week to his office. We were 0-8. I had only kicked 11 field goals, and I was like the lowest of attempts. Yeah. For that season so far. And I told him, Coach, use me. Because there could have been times during the year prior to he came that we could have kicked more field goals, but we went for it. I'm like, use me, like help me. I mean, use me to help the team. Like I feel I can help the team. He's like, oh, I'm going to use you, Serge. I was like, all right. So I remember that first game, we're playing against Toronto. We get by the end of the first quarter, we get like a 2-3 hour rain delay. Wow. Lightning. And before you know it, it was a long time out. During that time, I was already eating my sandwiches and everything, right? We're probably never going to play. So it's probably like 11:30 when we start again. And we start the second quarter, and right before the half, they're like, we're not going to have a halftime. So we can keep the game going. Right before the half, I remember they're like, hey, punt team. And there was like, I don't know, there wasn't much time left, maybe a minute. And I'm like, Coach, let's kick it. He's like, you got it? I'm like, because it was 50. It was a 57-yarder.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, yeah, I got
Coach,
it.
I got this.
And then this is when I realized like how calm this guy is. He went like this. He's like, punt, field goal unit, let's go. Wow. I'm like, just like that. I was like, cool, right? And we ended up making that 57-yarder, and it was a big momentum shift for our team. And like I said, that's why getting to play for June in the XFL was cool, because I love being around his presence, how calm he is, his faith, more than anything.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So you know what? Just want to, thank you again for stopping by. I know you're only here for a few days and you don't come often. So just thank you again for, talking to us, sitting here. I'm sure a lot of people have taken a lot from this conversation. I'm pretty more than sure they're happy to hear from you, because like you said, you don't get to talk to everybody. Time flies, so anything else you want to say?
If there's like social media now, it's easy, right? Yeah. They have to reach through. If anyone has any questions, they have no excuse now. Okay. If they want to ask me, they can reach through you, reach through me, or however they want, through social media. Because if there's some words I can say or just some questions that I can answer through my experiences, through my failures, to help ease someone and be like, oh, okay, you know what, it can be done. Don't hesitate to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, and you reply pretty quickly too, so that's good.
Yeah, and if like I said, because yes, I'm able to play football, but I was able to get a degree more than anything by playing a sport. Yeah. So if I can help someone along the way, I'd be more than happy to.
Awesome. So go ahead, tell them where they can find you at.
Yeah. Instagram, it's Casti Casti 317,
Okay.
and then I don't know my Twitter, but
I'll find it. I'll plug it in.
yeah, I'll plug
Yeah,
it in the Twitter,
yeah.
but Casti 317 on Instagram. So, but don't hesitate to ask any questions.
Awesome.
Like I said, I'm here to help
Awesome.
any of our raza out.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Awesome, man. Looking forward to having you back for real. Next time we'll get to really deep dive and talking to those, college stories, a little bit more about
into
your
it.
experiences. Yeah. But yeah, thank you again. Again, thank you for watching, viewing, subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. This is my friend Sergio over here. So, make sure to give him a follow. Shout out to everybody. Thank you guys for watching.